It all started with business cards. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm also a belly dancer. It was too small for what I wanted to do. It's only one piece. This combination of all the different dance forms that I've ever done. It's modern dance, tap, Mexican folklorico, a tiny bit of flamenco, the martial arts. So every time that I add another martial art, I add another movement quality, another theory, another piece, another color. I just can't not. The way that theater and storytelling have always snuck in there, even in situations where people just really wish that I would just freaking dance. I'm like, I can't. Theater was my original major. Oh, I want to be on Broadway someday. And then I'm a writer. All the things that I do constantly in writing, they go right into my dancing. And then DAIN BRAMAGE happened, and I went down to Santa Fe with his musician friend, and I was down there with some of her other musician friends, and they had been showing me this wonderful album that they had done right before I went to bed. So I went to bed with like all this glorious music that is not remotely belly dance music in my head, and all it made me want to do was dance. And they had this gorgeous courtyard down there in Santa Fe with, of course, all the glorious Spanish architecture and the plants and everything. And super, super early, I woke up for some weird reason at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Bing! Because the mesa was calling out there. And if you guys know about New Mexican mesas, they do things, they're magic out there. And nobody was up, and I went outside. I stayed out there until the sunrise finally came up. At that point, I was also dancing to my husband's band, and they have the hefty Spanish influence as well. And they had this fabulous song that was my favorite song of their originals, and it was called Las Tejedoras. And when I asked what that meant, he's like, oh, this is the women in my family. This is what inspired this song. And he went on and told me this story about his family, who are famous weavers. It's, this image of the women in his family is what inspired this song. And so I was having this conundrum, what to call myself. What do I do? I'm not just a belly dancer. And there was this whole thing.
Oh, the crap.
And I watched that sunrise over the mesa. And all of a sudden it was like, that's it. Oh my God. That's the name. Tejedora. And because that's what I do, is I weave everything that strikes my fancy all together into something else. So that worked really, really well while I was living in Colorado. And a lot of people actually knew how to pronounce that word. It worked really well while I was combining belly dance with the folklorico and a little touch of flamenco. So later, it didn't work so well, especially when I moved to Arkansas. And by then, there was all sorts of other stuff that I was starting to weave in that was not with a Spanish influence. And when I got to Arkansas, a lot of the people had no idea how to pronounce this name and had a lot of trouble with it, and it didn't feel right anymore. And so that kind of started going by the wayside, and I needed something else. I knew it had to be something bigger than what Tejedora had been in. It was starting to feel restrictive. I started thinking about adding on other dance drills. I started just really fully letting myself dance the way that I have always wanted to dance again, and taking even more chains off that whole thing when I came to Arkansas and I wasn't performing, I wasn't teaching. For a while there, I wasn't even driving. I'd had all these seizures there for a year. They revoked my driving clearance, and I pretty much couldn't do anything but, be in my house and try to keep all the stimulation down so much that I didn't have seizures. And by the time that I was able to dance again, it was mostly in my kitchen, and it was to a lot of Lindsey Sterling and all this old stuff, like from, when I used to do dance in college. That was one of my degrees. That was one of the main things I studied back then. And I had abandoned that for many, many years. Modern dance is one of my main influences, especially when you start looking at the pioneers and everything that they were doing. those mindsets and those theories and concepts, that really stuck with me, and it is one of the biggest foundations of my dancing. And so I started welcoming all of that back into my movement, you know. So Hartebeast, of course, technically, it's an animal. It's kind of like a wildebeest, but it's a Hartebeast. It's got a little different horns. It's, you know, like, but it's not spelled the same way that I spell it. It's B-E-E-S-T instead of B-E-A-S-T, which is how I spell it. Mostly because I'm a punny girl, and because the animal doesn't really, that's not the image that I'm going for. So it's a little different animal. Yes, so Hartebeast references my last name that I chose after my second divorce. The name that I decided I am never going to change again. Ever in my life. So yes, so there's the last name, and then, well, you know, there's beast mode, and then of course there's one of my oldest nicknames, which is Bella, or BellaDancer. Geez, I've had that nickname since I was about 20. First SCA name that I ever chose was Arabella, and so everybody just kind of called me Bella, and then they found out that I was a belly dancer, and so they were also really punny and just called me BellaDancer, har har, and that definitely stuck, and that has been my email address since then, like back since the days of Juno. I don't know how many of you remember Juno, but yeah, it was BellaDancer. But there's a lot of punny that goes on around here. So that's where the name came from. And by the time that I started thinking about, okay, I think I could actually go back and teach, and, you know, I don't know if I can travel, but for sure I can do this online thing. So I started leaning into that while I had the time and the ability to just really ask myself, what do I want to create? What do I want to do? What do I want to teach? Maybe I won't do as many live performances because the lights and all that stuff, that just the stress of a live performance really messes up my brain. And if you add travel to that, yeah. So that was going to be my mindset. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put out YouTube videos instead of doing live performances, and I'm going to teach online, and then, you know, every once in a while I'll do some live events, and that'll be great. Yay. As I started really thinking about everything I wanted to teach, it was way more than just dance.
All this stuff that was like, okay, well, I also want to write books, and I've got all this writing, and it's all sitting in my computer, and the things that I've learned in surviving DAIN BRAMAGE, like the creative process, and being an innovator, and getting over injuries and other traumas. And
all this stuff.
You know, of course, all my business gurus are like,
no, okay, you need to do one thing.
One thing. One thing.
I just freaking can't. All of a sudden I remembered my elements system that I made to kind of give the opposite spectrum of the dance drills, which are, you know, really left brain, very analytical, technical, and then, oh, you know, how do I even instill all this creative stuff, and oh, shiny, and oh my gosh, yeah. So those are the two opposite extremes of my teaching techniques. That gave me the means to put each of these pieces, my martial arts, my storytelling, my dance, the creativity point, the, you know, habits and healing. What it showed me was the positions of the elements that I've been working with since 2010. It's expanded since then, so it's not just for belly dance anymore. It's this constant circular thing, going deeper and deeper. And when I started to try to map it out, it looked like this monstrous galaxy of like solar systems. There you go. That's the Hartebeast system, just in the first little tip of the iceberg in my squeaky chair. It's my writing chair.